Okay guys, pop onto Blackboard, download the files that are there. You are going to be working on an assignment, which you will get today, and I will show you examples of what people have done in the past, where you're going to be taking a can and you're going to cut it out today, but then you're going to photograph some kind of a background and you're going to composite it into that background, including whatever shadows or reflections or whatever are necessary. So we're going to go through the whole process of getting that created. To that end, take a look on the screen there. Something has been added to that scene. What do you think it is? I said can, didn't I? You would have figured it out anyway. But you'll notice it's a pretty good job. And this is kind of the gist of what the assignment is going to be. You're going to be photographing something. So the student in this case photographed the refrigerator. They already had the can cut out because that's what we're going to do today. Our plan today is to get this can extracted using a channel masking technique. And we'll put it onto some kind of a synthetic background that we'll make up. We'll put in a little reflection, all kinds of stuff. This one didn't have a reflection, but it did include a shadow. Like, as far as realism goes, you want to include as much stuff as you can to make it look as realistic as you can. So I'll show us some examples of what people have done in the past, but you can see there's the can just kind of magically levitating in the fridge. So there you go. How are we going to do that? Well, pop onto Blackboard, download the files, and in there you'll see two little Sanpeli files. One is the can itself, and one is a different version of the can. Open them both up in Photoshop, and let's talk about these two different images here. These were made by Paul Eekhoff for one of the studio classes, and the idea was to try to figure out how you could cut out something with fairly complex edges without having to resort to doing a whole lot of complex cutting out. Remember we took a look a while ago at using a layer mask. You grab a paintbrush and you kind of cut out around the outside, then you select the background, expand, fill, all that kind of stuff. This will be a different technique. This will be using something that already exists and trying to make that into a layer mask. We've talked about the RGB concept, red, green, and blue, and how you have three different color channels. You guys ever heard the term alpha channel? Basically, any channel that doesn't contain color information. And we use it in Photoshop to store selection information. Other programs use it for other things, like if you're doing 3D rendering, an alpha channel would be used to represent transparency. But for us, it stores selection information. Now, what are we going to do about getting this can cut out? I mean, like I said, we could use a pen tool, or we could go in with a layer mask, and we could take that paintbrush, and we could try to match the softness of the edge. I'm guessing this softness is, well, that's too soft of an edge. What happens if you try to cut out using too soft of an edge? Let's say I'm cutting out along here and I get close to the can. If I don't go far enough, I'm going to leave a little bit of the background showing. If I go too far, I want to get rid of all that background. Oh, I've made some of the bottom of the can there invisible. We want a nice clean edge around there. If I was using a layer mask, I'd probably take a brush about this size. That would be a good, appropriately sized brush. But imagine this was like a model standing against the sky and the hair is blowing. Would this technique work to cut out hair really convincingly? Probably not. A channel mask, though, if the background is fairly smooth, can do it. Now this image, a channel mask isn't really going to work because there's no channel that has really good contrast between the foreground and the background. And that is why Mr. Eekhoff included this photograph. How did he do this? Did he just underexpose? What do you think? Shut off the front light. He's got a background light shining onto here to light up the background. He's got a light in the front lighting up the can. He just turned off the front light and got this silhouetted version of it. Now a layer mask that cuts out that can, what would that look like? It would be, if it's revealing the can and hiding the background, white reveals, black hides, so it would be a white can with a black background. We've kind of got a black can with a white background. Oh, that's almost the exact opposite of what we need. We can really easily invert stuff, can't we? So this is actually a pretty good starting point for a layer mask. Would it be a good mask, though? Pure black would hide. Let's zoom in here and take a look. You don't see it so much here, but let's look at the individual color channels. Here's the red channel, here's the green channel, and here's the blue channel. I don't see it so much on the projector, but you can just barely, look at this. See this detail in here? That would be bad. That would be partially transparent on a layer mask. And if we go over to the other side of the can, oh, there's some even worse bits around here. And the background, which would need to be pure white, it's pure white over here, but uh-oh, look at this. You start seeing this gradient pattern making its way across, and it's actually kind of bumping up against the can. So there actually is some gray tones here and some gray tones there. A proper layer mask would be completely black to hide or completely white to reveal. Could we make this completely black or completely white? Yes, we could. Levels. What if we pulled the levels in? Now, we've got a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And if you were doing a channel mask on, say, like that woman standing on the hilltop with her hair blowing in the wind, if you did it directly to one of the color channels, you'd be messing up the color information in the image, wouldn't you? But we can only load up an alpha channel, so we need to make an alpha channel, but we want to base it on one of these color channels. Typically with people, you'll usually find it's the blue channel. And actually on this one here, the blue channel also seems to work out best. So call up the image, the San Pelli Silu image, the silhouette image, and go into the channels there. And if you click on the names of the channels, red, green, blue, you can see each individual channel. And take a look in the shadows of that label and see that information that's showing up in there. Especially on the red channel, you really see some of this gray tone showing up in the label there. The blue channel seems to have about the best contrast. So let's go to that blue channel there. And we're going to have to do some horrible things to it. We're going to permanently lose some shadow information and some highlight information. So what do we do to that blue channel? We don't want to do it to the blue channel. Let's duplicate it. Now, there's a couple ways you could duplicate it. They'll both get you to the same end result. One will do it a little bit more expediently. If you right-click and choose Duplicate Layer, it'll duplicate the layer, but you'll end up with the wrong layer visible. Sorry, it'll duplicate the channel, but you'll end up with the wrong channel visible. Take a look on the screen for a second. If I right-click and choose Duplicate Channel, it does it. Awesome. There's that copy of the channel, and it even called it blue copy for me, which is awesome. And you can see that it's highlighted in a lighter gray, meaning this is the active channel, but it is not visible. The blue channel is visible. I could make it visible simply by clicking on that. The alpha channel is now visible, but because it's not a color channel, it shows it as this kind of red overlay. It's called a rubylith. It kind of dates back to the days of the darkroom. But if I turn off the eyeball on the blue channel, all I'm seeing is the blue copy here. Another way to make a duplicate of the blue channel is to simply grab it and drag it down onto the new channel icon, right between the trash can and the other little icon there. And voila! It gives you a blue copy with its eyeball turned on, and it's the active channel. So we have an alpha channel. Like I said, we have to do horrible things to it. We have to do a permanent change. And you might say, well, why don't we keep this non-destructive? Why don't we use like an adjustment layer for our levels here? Why don't we use an adjustment layer? There, we're in our channels panel, can't use any layers in here. So it does have to be done directly to this. So let's call up our levels. Let's go under Image, Adjustments, and Levels, or the keyboard shortcut for levels? Command L, either or. Image, Adjustments, Levels, or Command L. Now let's look at this histogram here. Here's our can, here's our histogram, and here's our shadows. This is our can here, and I'm guessing this little part along here is our can. You can see little flecks of gray along the edge there. That's probably these little guys around here. If I grab this black point and pull it up, any of this tonality that ends up to the left of the black point will become black. So I pull this up, there we go, ha! Oh no, there's still a little bit more in there, sneaky stuff. Okay, around 23, 24, wow. For me, seems to deal with that crud along there. Now the highlights, you can see this gradient kind of making its way across, and the white over here, awesome, because like that spotlight was really blasting onto the edge there. But that fall off, we're getting some tonality in here, which would be this stuff around in here. Well, let's take that white point and pull it down, not too far. We don't want to like crank it down this way, just enough that that gray recedes enough that we have white around the outside here. So like a festering gum line, we want it to kind of recede enough that we can see white around the entire side of the can. Now this is going to be a permanent change, so think carefully about what you're about to do before you hit OK. And that's all we really need from this silhouette document. You can call up channels between documents. If we go back to the original San Pelli image, and we go under Select, Load Selection, and haha, it found the silhouette document because it knows it's the only one with an alpha channel, and it said, well, this must be the one you want. There's no other options in here. So I'm going to hit OK, and kaboom, we have loaded that alpha channel as a selection. So far, so good. How's everybody doing? So I mean, if this had been a person standing, that woman on the blue sky and the hair blowing, you could find the channel that has the best contrast, play around with the levels, load it up as a selection, hit it with a layer mask. Would it be perfect? Probably not, but it would be a pretty good starting point. And that's what we've got here, is a pretty good starting point. So when we have an active selection and we create a layer mask, the layer mask will be based on that selection. So hit that layer mask icon, kaboom, and it's backwards. Remember I said, yeah, the can would have to be white to be revealed and the background would be black. Well, we've got a black can and a white background. What's a fast way to invert that? Command-I, or image adjustments, invert, and around it goes. So far, so good. We're getting there. Now, that was pretty quick, and it was pretty good for, look at this. See, like the edge of the can here. It's got like little water droplets, and look at the detail of those little droplets along the edge there. That was pretty good. This side over here, oh no, look at this. We have transparent areas. We have holes in the side of the can. The soda would leak out through those areas. What caused those little holes? Let's take a look at the layer mask for a second. Why do we have little holes along there? Yeah, when the background, it was really bright. Like if I look at the layer itself for a second, yeah, the light was blasting onto here, and some of it was reflecting off of the edge. So some of that white actually got reflected into the edge here. That's okay. We can change the layer mask at any time. There's nothing permanent about a layer mask. So I could go in here with a paintbrush, black paint, 100% opacity, and in this case, probably a hard edge. And I can just kind of paint some of that stuff out. Now we can see the little edges of the little bubbly bits along there. And you guys remember the shift clicking technique? If I hold down the shift key, I can jump between points. So that lets us bring back those visible parts of the edge. So give that a whirl. Okay, so guys, once you've got the side done, take a look around and see where else there might be problems. Like, could there be a giant PVC pipe sticking out the bottom of the can? Yes, there is. Can we visibly see where the edge here is? No, we cannot, unless we option click on the layer mask. You can paint on a layer mask whether you have it visible or not. So from here, I can see, big pipe going up the bottom side there. I can click my way around and cut that off. Ultimately, what we're trying to get is a can floating magically in transparency. So work your way all around the image. You'll also notice the left side. Remember we pushed the whiteness until it just went around the edge of the can there, so we had white around here? Now that we've inverted, it's black, but all of this stuff is still here. This is where a big honkin' brush could help, and we can just blah down the side there. And then zoom in and do the little finicky detail-y bits. When you're painting on a layer mask, make sure you have the layer mask selected, like these little 4 corner points are around it. If you've got the latest version of Photoshop, sometimes when you step backwards, let's say you do something and oops, let me just undo that Command-Z, it drops the focus from the mask onto the layer itself. And then suddenly you go in with paint and you're painting on the layer itself, not on the mask. Because Adobe likes to piss people off, and they're getting very good at it.
I swear to God, that doesn't happen recently.
In one of the later versions, you'll be painting away on the layer mask. Oops, let me just undo that Command-Z, and suddenly you're painting black across your image. And if you're doing white, you may not necessarily notice that you're doing it on the image itself, or if you're in like a gray area. So yeah, good for them, right?